MVP Robert Crane. Robert's been consulting businesses in IT for a number of years. So Robert, I'll let you take it away.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm glad to see that you included my middle initial. It's always really important to get my middle initial in there because, life's not any good without a middle initial, thanks to my parents. So let me just get confirmation from you that you can see my desktop.
Looks good.
Yeah, all desktop. Okay, so let's kick off with some news around the Microsoft space. And again, thank everybody for joining. So if you aren't aware, Microsoft has announced that it will be releasing Windows 11 to the public on October 5. So if you take a look at my desktop here, you'll see this is the lovely Windows 11 that I've been playing with. You'll notice that there are a couple of differences here. It does look visually more stunning. You'll notice that the icons or the taskbar has moved to the center, very much Mac-esque, I suppose. It has had a refresh in the look and feel. Now, what's going to happen is this is going to start rolling out to eligible machines from the 5th of October. So if you have a machine that is suitable to run Windows 11, you will be offered this as an update over time, and they will roll it out in stages as we go along. So you don't have to upgrade your machine if you don't want to Windows 11. Most new machines will also start coming with Windows 11 on board. And the idea here is that it's going to give a visual refresh. There's not a huge amount of technical difference between Windows 11 and Windows 10 under the covers. It's really, I suppose, a new skin. I think it's good. I think it's more productive. But the main things are to remember it will be offered to existing machines, and it is not something that you necessarily have to jump on board with straight away. So Microsoft is very keen, obviously, to encourage people to upgrade to its latest version of Windows. Now, the idea here is that we can go in and have a look at all these wonderful things that Microsoft's telling us about the product. So we'll make sure that we give you the links so you can go in and have a look at what those changes are when it comes to the new Windows 11. Now, the other big announcement this morning, or in the US this afternoon, was the release of the new Microsoft Surface products. Now, these are engineered, as Microsoft call them, for Windows 11. And there is a range of devices here. So they've gone through and they've refreshed basically their laptop, they've refreshed their foldable, and they've also updated their Duo, which is, I suppose, their smaller device option. So again, the link in here shows you what this is all about. This one here, I think, is really worth a look. This is what they're calling, what are they calling this? The Surface Laptop Studio. It's a foldable, so the idea is that you can adjust that screen to look like a laptop, however you can position it forward, as you see in this graphic, to make it more like a tablet with just the pad in the front there. And then you can also lay it flat to make it like a full tablet. So very interesting. It's rumored to be the most powerful one, so it's got the most grunt in there if you want it. And it's going to give those people who need that the flexibility. Now, the one that I'm personally really excited about to see to come here to Australia will be the Surface Duo. So the Surface Duo is the device option. It's an integrated phone and tablet device. The interesting component about this is that it's a foldable, meaning that obviously you can fold it like a notebook or a wallet, and it allows you to have two screens, and you can have, for example, emails on the left and take notes on the right-hand side. And as I mentioned, it is 5G, or will be 5G compatible, so you'll be able to use it as a phone if you want, but also to stream all your data. Now, at the end of the day, these Microsoft devices are not necessarily cheap. They're aimed at the premium end of the market. They do come with a little bit of a premium on them. However, these are the devices that I use myself, used them for years, recommend them to family and friends. I find they're very reliable, work very well, but I'm sure that other suppliers will be bringing out complementary products as well. So again, go in and have a look at that. Have a look at the devices that are available. They will be available in the US in October. We expect to see them probably hit just before Christmas here in Australia, if not in the new year. So we'll keep posted on that. But again, probably a little bit of a wait, but it gives you time to go in and perhaps look at the stats. Now, one of the other applications that I really love is called OneNote. If you haven't looked at OneNote, think of it like a digital notebook. I really love it because you can capture just about all the information that you use day to day inside this. So it will allow you to, write. It will allow you to type, copy and paste, capture pictures. And some of the big benefits are that it synchronizes this information instantaneously up to the cloud and then to all other devices. So if you haven't looked at OneNote, you'll typically have it already on your system. And it is, again, like I said, a digital note-taking capability. Now, Microsoft has had two different versions. One is what they call a Windows 10 app, and the other one was a traditional desktop app. What they're doing is they're merging the capabilities of both of these together to move towards a single application. So all the features between the two are being merged effectively into the desktop app. So that is going to be good to allow Microsoft to focus all its resources on one single solution and provide all the benefits in there. Now, if you are on an early release, or you can jump on an early release of this, you can see these features beginning to flow through the environment. So if as yet you haven't had a look at OneNote, highly encourage you to go and have a look at it for capturing all that digital information and making sure it's available, searchable, backed up to the cloud, and keep an eye out for all the new features that are coming along to this environment. Now, another thing Microsoft announced a few weeks ago was what they're calling Windows 365. So, in essence, what Windows 365 is a cloud-based PC. So think of this as a device, like the device you're probably viewing this on, up in the cloud in a Microsoft data center, that allows you to run effectively exactly the same as you're running on your current desktop. Now, the big advantage with this is that, let's say that you have new employees who don't have the appropriate equipment. You can spin one of these up in a Microsoft data center. They can access it on their phone, on their tablet, on their existing, out of date style PC through a browser, and they can be productive. You can make sure that security is applied and all the applications are there. And when the employee comes back to that machine, it's right where they left it. So the benefit here is that Windows 365 is a flat fee per month virtual Windows 10 device. So it's going to give you that flexibility to be able to run a device in the cloud that you can access from anywhere that you have internet access, so via a browser or a mobile device, and run effectively exactly the same as you are running on the device, the physical device that you have today. So it gives a lot of flexibility around those capabilities moving forward. We expect Microsoft to continue to develop it and enhance that, but this product is available today in Australia. So if you do want to have a look at that, you can spin one of those up on your existing plan to get a feel for what's going on. So as always, there's lots and lots of news from the Microsoft space. We could go on for a long period of time talking about all the benefits and all the news, but what we want to do is we want to give you some takeaways here, some better understanding around the Microsoft 365 product, especially around file management and the benefits it can provide to you. And then we'll open up for any Q&A that you may have. So hopefully you have a familiarity with what you see. This is logging into a demo tenant of mine. This is the major front page. This is going to show me, the documents I've been working on, the information that is most relevant to me. Now, the first major benefit of putting your information into the cloud is going to be this bar here. So what I can do is I can use the search capabilities. So you are probably already familiar with using search in a search engine to find information that's out there somewhere on the internet. What you may not be familiar with is using that same sort of concept to search your own information. So if I just click on the bar, you'll see that it's recommending some common apps I've been working on and also some common files as well as people. So don't think of search as simply limited to files or information. Also think about it as giving you the ability to search across people in your organization for information and skills they may have. But for example, if I go in and search for a file that I'm looking for called BRK2022, you'll see that the search automatically updates, gives me all the references to that text inside my environment. So this is searching across my personal OneDrive, it's searching across my SharePoint team sites, it's searching across my Microsoft Teams, all my file data for a match of that field. Now you'll see there is a file called that, and also some other files that obviously mention that text as well. But what I'm going to do is just click on that file, and that is going to take me directly to that file. It's going to open it up. And again, if it is an Office document, as it is in this case, you'll see that I can view that file, I can edit that file. And again, if I want, I could present that file directly as well. All right, so all of that is possible. You'll see here that I've got the viewing capability, and if I want, I could open it directly on the desktop if I so chose. So the very first big benefit of putting your data, your file data into the cloud is this capability to search, and you'll generally find the search capability in the top banner in every location that you are using inside Microsoft 365. Now, there is a dedicated app which a lot of people aren't familiar with that extends this capability even further. So the idea here is if you haven't gone in and seen this, you'll see that there is an application here called Delve, right? Delve. So if I select that, think of Delve as your search engine for everything in Office 365. So what it's going to show me when I go into Delve, it's going to show me information about me. So it's going to show information about my email address, phone number. It'll see a mini display of my calendar. But over here on the right, you'll see that it gives me information about the files I've been working on. So if I select See All, you'll see here that what it's giving me is it's giving me a list of files based on the priority or the importance they are to me. Now, this importance is worked out by the software behind the scenes. So it looks at how often you visit the file, who's sharing it with you, whether it's relevant to the job that you are doing. So this is very much like a Facebook, a LinkedIn, a social media feed. The software is determining what it believes is most relevant to you based on your interactions. Now, you'll see here that I can also look at just attachments. So I don't know how many of you spend many, many hours of your day looking for that one email with that one attachment that you are sure that somebody sent you. This is another way that you can, again, put your finger on that really, really quickly. Now, of course, you'll see here that I've got lots and lots of options, lots and lots of files. So what I can now do is I can go in here and I can, you know what, I'm sure it was an Excel file. So now I can filter down the information across my environment. So yes, I'm looking for a particular Excel file. And again, in this case, you'll see maybe I'm looking for this file here for Chicago narcotics for some nefarious means that I'm conducting in the background here. And I can click on this file and it would take me directly to that file as we saw before. But if I click on the link down the bottom here called demo, what that's going to do is that's going to take me to the actual location where that file is. So think of that as a directory, think of that as a folder in which that file is actually stored. So not only can I go to the file directly and click to open it, but I can also go to the location in which that file is stored quickly and easily. Now, what we can also do here, because you may need to go back to files on a regular basis and how the system evaluates may change. Now, you'll see down here, there's also a little flag option here, and you can add that to what's called your favorites. So if you go to your favorites here, what you'll see is these are existing files that I have flagged as a personal favorite, which means no matter how much I interact with them, I will still be able to get to these files simply by clicking on them. So think of this like your internet favorites or saving that location so you can come back to it on a regular basis. Now, these favorite documents are my personal ones. So this is my personal bookmarks to the files that I want. But what I can do here with the intelligence provided by Microsoft 365 is I can actually create something called a board. So a board, think of a board like a common set of favorites. Now, this means that the information that I save to a board is visible to other members of my team. So let's say that I'm running a project and I'm doing the budget. I would pin up my Excel budgets spreadsheet. Someone else may want to pin up the Word document for the project timeline and so on. So rather than taking files and attaching them to an email, then sending them all these people, then I can use the power of the system here to create a board and share that information directly with my team. And they always know that they can come to this location, this shared location, and access that. Now, an important aspect of the environment is that it's all security trimmed. Now, what that means is that I cannot see and access information that I don't have permissions to. So the idea here is I set up my systems, I set up the permissions, I set up my restrictions, and then the information that I see in products like Delve and in the search that I've shown you is only the information I'm allowed to get to. So I can't go and search for stuff and have it accessible because it is permissioned to prevent me from doing that. So remember, all of this is controlled by permissions, and users can only see information that they have permissions to access. So if another user came into this board and they didn't have access to the budget file, it wouldn't even appear on the board. They wouldn't even know that it was there, but they could certainly work with any other files they have access to. So when it comes to search, we can go up here and do our familiar, search for our file as we did before, and you'll see that we get a list, we get a direct access to that file as we did before. So exactly the same sort of concept here. Now, the second way is the capability, as I mentioned here, for the system to make decisions or informed decisions around what it thinks is relevant to me day to day. The third option I've got is I can actually look at the people that I collaborate with regularly. So in this case, I'm collaborating regularly with Lewis. I can see their details, their phone number, their calendar preview, and I can also see the files that Lewis has worked on that are relevant to me. Now remember that all these files that you see here basically have been shared with me in a way that I have permissions to access. I can't see stuff that I haven't been given access to, but it means that I can say, well, hang on, Lewis is out of the office at the moment. I can't reach him. I know he's been working on a budget that's relevant to me. Oh, here it is here. It was publicly available, but I wouldn't have to necessarily go digging through reams and reams of folders and files to find that information. So the idea here overall with this is that largely in today's environment, structure is not so important because the searching capability allows us to put our finger on that information quickly and easily. So again, everything that you upload into this environment becomes searchable, which means it's really easy for people to go and find. Now, when you set up a Microsoft 365 environment, you will get a personal storage location, which is unique to you, called OneDrive. Okay, so OneDrive for Business is your personal location or a user's personal location to put all of that sort of information. Now, what makes sense in here is stuff that you're working on before you want to provide it to the group, or maybe you just want to share with a very limited amount of people. But again, as I mentioned up here, you'll see that the search capability is built in there. I can search for a document that I know is in this environment. So the idea is that every user gets their own personal storage location in Microsoft 365. That means it gets rid of the information that is on their desktop, on USB drives, saved somewhere, that if those devices are lost, stolen, or corrupted, that information would be lost. By putting it in OneDrive, I get the ability to access it anywhere, to have it searchable, to have it backed up, and also in control of the business. Now, for example, if we go down and have a look at a file here called, I have to change the sorting, so a good example here of the ability to quickly go in here and sort from top to bottom. So let me go in here and find a file here. So you'll see here that I have a file called credit cards or ccards.xls. You might see that it basically has information here that it contains sensitive information. So because the information lives inside my cloud environment, my business can now apply policy to that information. So what it means is, even though it's the personal information I use that maybe nobody else has got access to, in this case, it contains what the business considers to be confidential information, and it can apply a policy to that. So I've got the ability as a business to control the information. The user has the ability to access that information, search that information, share that information readily, but all the control still remains within the business. Now, OneDrive for Business is the perfect location for storing individual unique files and folders. Now, when we want to share information, have a group of people working on them, we want to move into the service which is known as SharePoint. So SharePoint, think of it like a traditional intranet, which combines not only files and folders, but calendars, contacts, announcements, all of that sort of stuff that's in there. So I can have as many SharePoint sites as I want. I can have them in any structure that I want. And remember that we're trying to create an appealing area that combines a lot of the information we need for collaboration inside a single location. So you'll see here that I've got a nice front page. I can click on any of these and navigate to other areas in my environment. So the user doesn't need to know that it's, F Drive, Documents, Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways, and then the document lies in there. So they can navigate around exactly the way that they would navigate around the internet, which makes it much easier for them to work with. Now, of course, in here, I'm going to have my documents as I would on my OneDrive, but the idea here is that I have a very flat structure. So rather than having folders within folders within folders, what I want to do is create unique buckets, and typically I don't want a depth to exceed 3 levels down. So I want my SharePoint location, my document library, as you see here, and maybe one folder within that. Because what I want to be able to do here is, you can see all the files higgledy-piggledy, I suppose, here, but you'll see what I can do in the top right here is I can now go in and I can now start filtering these. So what I can say is I only want to see Word documents. So now it's going to filter down that view to allow me to see the information that I've selected quickly and easily. So again, the whole idea here is to think about an environment that is much flatter and uses things like search, filtering, and sorting to allow people to find the information much easier, much quicker. So we've got all those capabilities here. We can turn those off. We can turn those on. We can, again, control all of those if we want to do that. Now, another capability that we do have in the shared information space is something called metadata. So the idea here is that, I go to my test site, sorry, not my test site. The idea here is what we want to do is we want to basically be able to go in and look at our information and provide our own relevant tagging of that. So if you've ever used some of the email products, or you've ever used things like Gmail, they support this concept of tagging. So what you'll see over here basically is we have a field called customer. So that customer field is a field that I have added manually to allow me to tag or highlight my data. Now, once I do that, I can go in here and I can group that information so that it appears based on what that column has an entry for. And if you have a look at this, this looks very much like a traditional folder structure, rather than actually me having to go in and drill inside every single folder. Now, what's the benefit of that? Once again, I can go up and do a filter here. I can go in and you'll see that I've now got the capability to not only sort by the file type, but I can also sort by the particular customer. So once again, the best practice, the trends are to having a very flat structure and then utilizing things like tagging with metadata to describe those files, which is in the language of your own business. So what we talked about quickly here was firstly to remember that OneDrive is for personal storage. Every user gets that capability. And then we talked about shared locations, which is the SharePoint product. The final one I'll talk about here is Microsoft Teams. Now, what Microsoft Teams does is it brings together the collaboration, the files, but also with real-time chat. So let's say that I have a project or a group that are focused on information here. And what I want to be able to do is have these people converse about the topic or about the topics in the same location where my file data is. So you'll see here I've got a team called Patrons. Inside here, what I've created as an example is a news channel. So this is all the news of what's happening with Microsoft that people can go in, comment, and interact with. But then if I want them to find information about their Microsoft 365, you'll see that they can go into the Files tab here and then access that file information as quickly and easily. Now, in the background here, what's happening is this file information is stored in SharePoint, right? So if I go over here, you'll notice that basically it will say open in SharePoint, and SharePoint is actually backing this information. So think of Teams as a different skin on top of your file information, but also gives you the capability to include the capability to chat. Now, what's the benefit of this? Well, the big benefit is going to cut down your emails, because people aren't firstly saying, can you send me this? Can you do this? They're not having those conversations in siloed containers. They're having them out here in the open where, for example, we can go and do searches here. So let's go and do a search maybe for Surface, and let's see if that finds anything. This will search across my conversations, my file data, as well as any other capabilities. So putting this in a nice, simple interface that a user can work with their own personal files, their shared files, conversations with their team, provide them with the search capabilities, and integrate the ability to run meetings as we are on now, is one of the big productivity benefits that Microsoft is bringing to the space with all of these. So obviously, I think I'm approaching my time. If you do have any questions, I think we can go open up to any Q&A. Hopefully, I've given you a bit of information about the structure here. So in essence, in summary, OneDrive for Business, every user gets as a personal location for their file data. SharePoint is for common file data, and Teams wraps the conversations around that data in the same location. All of it is searchable, all of it is manageable and controlled by permissions and compliance for the organization. And importantly, all of it is available on mobile applications. So you don't have to be in front of a desktop, you don't have to be in front of a browser. All you need is a device to access and interact with this information. And the big benefit is that once it's in the cloud, you get this capability around searching. So I think that's probably enough from me, Campbell. I will hand back to you because I think we're pretty close to time, and see if there are any questions or anything else that needs to be covered.
Yep, thanks very much for that, Robert, and thank you everyone for listening in. As Robert mentioned, we do have time for some Q&A. I think we've unlocked the ability for everyone to use their microphones. So has anyone got any questions for Robert before we wrap up? If you're having trouble using the microphones, feel free to pop a message in chat as well. And while those messages are coming through, or questions, we'll let everyone know that we will be picking names out of a hat for a prize draw. So if you are one of the lucky winners, you will be receiving an email after the webinar to receive that prize.
Now, obviously, Campbell, too, if people have questions after the fact, if they go back to their desktop and start playing around with this, what's the best way to get in contact with ABT about any questions they may have following up from this?
Yeah, definitely. So look, I'd probably recommend just giving us a call or flicking an email through as a ticket, and just mention you want to have a conversation. It's not every day that you have a support issue that you want fixed. Sometimes you just want to speak to someone about specific solutions. So just mention it's just referencing the webinar, and we'll sure to give you guys a ring to discuss it.
So I think the other thing too that we could encourage people to do is that, again, you can go in and play with this sort of stuff, get a feel for it in your own environment. You've probably got access to things like that I've mentioned today, like OneNote. You've also got Delve, which you can go in and have a look at. It won't impact anything. You've got your own OneDrive there that is your personal area if you want to interact with that. There's lots and lots of power in there. And I would suggest that Campbell and the crew at APT are probably looking for suggestions as to what you would like to see in upcoming webinars. So that's another opportunity just to let them know that, okay, well, I'd like to see a bit more detail on OneDrive, or, how files can be managed better. So that's probably another thing they can shoot through to you as well, Campbell.
Definitely. Yeah, if you do have any topics you want us to focus on, feel free to put through some suggestions. We do have a few different things on our agenda over the coming months, but we'd be happy to prioritize certain topics if you guys feel that you need some more training on that. So if there's no further questions, we will wrap everything up. And yeah, we hope to see all of you guys for our next webinar. Thanks again.